Hey guys, Solid here and welcome back to another episode of Bike Banter where we go through all your viewer questions which have been piling up recently, so let's get through them all. I do apologize for not being in the garage, but there's a lot of wind and the neighbors, kids are making a lot of racket because it's school holidays, so we're hiding in here where it's nice and quiet. So without further ado, let's get into those questions and roll that intro. So I've got the trusty iPad here and we're going to go through the viewer questions. The first one is from Phil and he's a long-time viewer and a really big supporter of the channel. So how you doing, mate? It's good to hear from you. And he's saying, I just wish you'd buy a bike and get back on the tracks. I miss your off-road antics instead of comparing apples and pears. But saying that, have a safe Christmas and looking forward to future trail vids. Kind regards, Phil. So Phil, thanks mate. I know you've been hanging around a long time and you first got in when I was doing a lot of the off-road rides. And believe me, I am intending to do them as soon as practicable and as soon as possible. And I've missed a couple of opportunities which were out of my control. And I have been trying to get another bike, believe it or not, but you would not believe how difficult it is to get a bike at the moment for off-road riding. People have just lost their absolute minds and they're panic buying off-road motorcycles is the best way I can put it. I've gone into multiple dealerships, called over 5 or 6 dealerships, telling them I'm looking for a specific kind of bike and they all say we don't have any stock and we have no idea when they're coming in. You might ask, why am I not getting secondhand? And if you hadn't noticed, you're sometimes paying as much, if not more, for a secondhand motorcycle at the moment as compared to a brand new bike. Now that really just isn't the kind of scenario where I want to throw down my money. Other bikes that I rode like a CRF300L, I just didn't really gel with it. And then we found out that Honda have actually discontinued it. So that's crossed off the list. I have been in contact with Honda to see about getting a CRF300L, but they can't tell me whether that will arrive in March or whether it will arrive in July or whether it will even arrive in the first half of this year with 100% confidence. So I'm not really willing to put my money on a bike I can't test ride and that I don't even know is going to turn up in the next 6 months. So that is really annoying me as well. The other clear option is the DRZ. I might be able to find one of them in a showroom being neglected, but I have a hard time spending $9,000-ish on something that's got 1999 technology. And I have ridden them and I really don't gel with them. They don't feel like my bike and I want something to hold on for a long time. I've also been thinking about Kawasaki. The KLX250S, while not ideal, with a big bore kit, I think could be quite a good bit of fun and potential, but bugger me if any of the dealerships in Western Australia have any and can tell me that they're going to be getting any new models anytime soon. So who knows what the hell's going on there. So I don't really want to go back to the WR250R. I know that hurts a lot of people's feelings, but I've been there and I've done that. I want something fresh and new for the channel, something that I can discover and you can discover along with me. So I'm not sure what that's going to be because apparently no dealership has any motorcycles that I want. So I don't know what to do. I'm kind of really frustrated. I actually took this question just to kind of express my frustration. Obviously, there's that other elephant in the room too, is that there are enduro bikes and there's a few of those available. Now there's the Beta 390RR. I really like the idea of that bike back in about 2017, 2018, but it appears, going by forums and going by other YouTubers like Barry and Cross Training Enduros, that the quality control is just not there with these bikes anymore. They're really struggling to keep up with the same amount of quality control that you would even expect out of KTM, let alone any of the Japanese manufacturers. So that really isn't something I want to do, especially when you're talking about almost $14,000. I would expect something to be tip-top at that price. I'm pretty frugal, and if I'm spending that kind of cash, I'm not accepting major flaws and sloppy construction. The other annoying thing is on the 390, what made it so good was the 2019 and prior models had a very wide ratio gearbox, so it made them fantastic at holding highway speeds, even though they're not ideal. That gearbox opened up the potential for turning it into a light ADV bike. The 2020s Plus don't have that same gear ratio. It's still okay on the highway, but it's not as great. So that's another disappointing fact as well. It still could be a possibility. Maybe some of you beta riders out there can tell me down below. I am having a hard time trying to convince myself to spend that kind of money. That comes to the other idea as well. I don't really want a KTM. I'm not willing to pay $16,000 for a 350 EXC-F. That's just ludicrous amounts of money. They can go suck a big one for all I care for that amount of money. I'm not paying that much. But Gas is apparently releasing the EC350F, which is basically an EXC, but it doesn't have the Brembo brakes. It has the brakes that they use on their trials bikes, as well as it uses a 2017 frame. That's very interesting to me. $13,750, I think it is right away, which, let's be honest, isn't too bad for an enduro bike, but is very expensive by Dual Sports. We don't have any information on the quality of these bikes yet, and they haven't arrived in Australia, and I can't get any specifics on the exact date. Now you could say, well, why don't you try a WRF from Yamaha? They really aren't suited for any kind of on-road purposes. Both of those bikes are terribly undergeared for any kind of on-road riding. They're also horribly uncomfortable to ride, in my opinion. They're very vibey motors. They're great at what they do, enduro riding and really hard desert racing. But for me, they're just too raw for me to be comfortable on. So that's my rant at the moment. I am trying to get a bike, but it really isn't working out for me at the moment. You know, where you just feel like you're kind of hitting a brick wall. Every idea you have and every turn you take, you're just getting rejected or shut down, or it turns out not to be such a great idea. So I really don't know what to do. Now, I know a few of you guys are going to jump in and go, well, why don't you look at SWM? They make the 300R and the 500R. Yeah, sure, point me out a WA dealer. You can't. There isn't any primary dealerships or well-renowned dealerships that I know are going to be there in a year or two's time if I need work or warranty work, all that kind of stuff. And on top of that, you've got the same kind of problems. They are in my budget, but again, the gearboxes aren't that fantastic. I'd class them at about DRZ, possibly worse. They really do run out of steam at about 100, 110 kilometers an hour. So that really isn't doable for me. I don't know what to do, but feel free to chuck your comments down below if you've got any ideas. So that's it. Sorry, Phil, I'm trying to get out there, mate, but who knows what's going to happen. So after that long rant, let's move into something a little more lighthearted. So recently I characterized the later KTMs as looking like an anorexic triceratops. And a reply to that was, so I'm riding an anorexic triceratops, eh? Well, how many of us get to ride dinosaurs? That's from Sando. Well, Sando, I'd say you're in a unique group. That's you, any other KTM riders, and also don't forget DR650 riders. They're also on dinosaurs as well. The next comment was made a couple of times, so that's why I've put it in this video. Clearly they're wanting to get their point across, and it is from Vivimus Libero. Vivimus Libero. I am terrible at pronouncing your name, so apologies if I do butcher them. And he's saying, like I said, it's not the size of the bike, it's how good you can ride. If people on a BMW 1250 GS are doing all kinds of riding, it's all about the skills. And he posted a second time saying similar things, that it's not the bike, it's the rider of where the skills count. I do agree that it is 80% rider and 20% bike at the end of the day. As you see guys like Chris Birch really being able to throw around big bikes. And I've known plenty of guys that are very comfortable at throwing around and riding their big adventure bikes where I take my tiny little dual sport, and they do a better job than I do. So there is a lot to say about skills. But what I'm talking about with the wrong bike is you forget about the beginners and the guys like me without a lot of skills. If you don't have the time to constantly work on your riding, or you're just getting into the sport and you have no skills, you're starting at a baseline of 0. That 80% means absolutely nothing to you. So that 20% bike actually becomes 100% important, if you get what I mean. You need the right bike to learn on and develop those skills. I think that's a big problem with spouting that kind of 80-20 rider. That makes sense once you get into the world of intermediate riding and we're all starting to split hairs about, oh, get a KTM, it'll make you a better rider, or get this, it'll make you a better rider, when in fact you need to work on your skills. But when we're talking about basic skills and learning to ride off-road, it is all about getting the right bike. So the next comment is from ERU, the Wind Rider, and he's saying, what makes you think that KTM does not have usable power? I ride a T7 and I also don't think that the 790 has a problem in that department. So you might have got that statement a little confused. When I talk about usable power, it has plenty of power, don't get me wrong, but try and use that, 100 horsepower off-road. When we're talking about traction in the dirt, probably realistically use maybe half of that horsepower when you're off-road. In situations where you're really starting to get into the more technical stuff, you're trying to maintain traction, I don't see the benefit of 100 horsepower there. I do see it on the road. It'd be fantastic on the road and a lot of fun, but I don't see the practicality of 100 horsepower. Even your T7, I would be arguing you're probably struggling to use all of the power of that bike in an off-road situation, given the traction issues and the amount of torque and spinning the wheel. It's certainly a lot more usable in my eyes, but there is argument to be said that big power off-road isn't always the answer. You do want traction in a lot of situations. So that's what I'm talking about when I say usable power. So the next comment is just a nice compliment, and it's from Amy and Andre LeBlanc, saying, great content and channel. You have a Canadian fan. Looking forward to seeing more adventure content. Thank you for entertaining us. It is really nice to get a compliment and vindicate the effort I'm putting in. I'm really putting in a lot of work at the moment to try and up my game, improve the quality of not only the footage, but the sound, the lighting, the research, and my editing skills. I'm really trying to improve every facet of this channel as best as I can, as much as I can. So it is always nice to hear back from you guys and receive positive feedback that I am heading in the right direction. So cheers, guys. The next question is from Wamu Chan, and he's asking me why I got a Yamaha V-Star 1300 instead of an adventure bike last year, which I have actually sold last year as well. Well, I got it because adventure bikes are just stupidly overpriced. They're in vogue, everyone wants them, so they're very expensive secondhand. And when I was looking for a second motorcycle to complement my dual sport, well, I didn't really need it to go off-road, because every adventure ride, I always ended up taking the dual sport anyway, because I know I end up doing the more difficult tracks. I just can't help it. So what did I need an adventure bike for if I wasn't going off-road? And I really didn't want to pay that tax. I'm always looking for thinking outside of the box. I don't like getting stuck in an echo chamber of just doing what everyone says you're supposed to do. So I grabbed the Cruiser because it can do long distance, it has a great big torquey motor, which I love, and it is very comfortable, which is basically all the things of an adventure bike, bar the bigger wheels and long travel suspension. Of course, they are very heavy, but that doesn't really matter on the road. And I absolutely love the thing. It met all my expectations and more. It was a fantastic decision. Of course, you don't really get the savings in money when you're looking at a Harley like you said you did. I owned a 1200 Sportster, and even that was fairly expensive. So with the Harley, the money argument doesn't come into it, and that was a big motivator for me. So if you just like the look of them and enjoy the style, go for your life. If you're not riding off-road, why do you need an adventure bike? Other than that, get out there and have some fun, mate, and cheers for your comment. Whizbang Diving is asking me which I would choose to go off-road if I was getting the 390 Adventure or the 300 Rally. It'd be the 300 Rally all day. I wouldn't consider the 390 Adventure at all. The 390 is lighter, it's got better ground clearance, longer travel suspension. It is just better off-road in every way. It's also got spoke wheels at 21-inch front and 18-inch rear wheel, which is really important for the more technical riding off-road. So it's got all of the things you need to do proper off-road riding, whereas the 390 Adventure is all about compromises to make it better on the road. So if most of your riding is on the road, I'd lean towards the 390 Adventure. If you're doing even 30% off-road or more, I'd go the Rally, as it's got the 390 covered in every aspect except for outright power. And even then, that's arguable because the 390's power is actually up quite high in the rev range, whereas the 300 Rally's got quite usable down low power and torque. So I think the 300 Rally all day for off-road. So the next question is from Brendan O'Donnell. He's going, hey dear chronicler, how you doing, mate? How would the mighty WR250R cope with a lap around Australia? I'm doing a ride next year from Mittagong across the Nullarbor, Geraldton, Alice Springs and home again. Well, that sounds like a fantastic trip and I sure hope that the borders open up and allow you to do that, mate. Might be a bit difficult at the moment, but the WR will be fine. In fact, it's the perfect bike for the job. And if I was going around Australia, it's probably one of the bikes on top of my list. And if I still owned my WR, I would have no hesitations in doing that trip. They really are the most capable 250 on the market at the moment. The next question is from Dimmy Maiden and he's asking me, is the T3 on the horizon from Yamaha? So the Tenere 300 that kind of circulates the forum rumors. I haven't heard a peep at all, nothing legitimate other than wishful thinking on a few forums. So the answer is no, I don't think they've got any immediate plans. They might be developing it in the quiet. They definitely have the motor for it and that's why everyone keeps talking about and wondering why Yamaha haven't done it. Perhaps they will surprise us all, but at the moment we don't have any legitimate rumors to go by. So the final question is from Jaybird and he's basically asking me, "Cos I'm keenly interested in the new CRF300 platform." Me too, mate. I just wish they'd get here already. My question is, what is the full difference between the L and the Rally and why should I buy either one? Well, I made a video completely on this topic, mate, so maybe check that out if you really want a lot of detail, but I'll try and go through it in this video as well to help you out. I live in a small town and 90% of my riding will be just around town and on local trails where gas stations are plentiful. Okay, so that signifies that you don't possibly need the range of the Rally's tank. With that said, I'm always intrigued by the windscreen, display setup, the extra fuel of the Rally. Are there any other differences I should be recognizing, and do you have a personal preference on which one perhaps you would buy and any particular reason why you would stay away from a particular model? For me personally, I'd get the 300L all day, every day. It's lighter, it has slightly less rake as well, I believe, so slightly shorter wheelbase, so it'll turn better in tight situations. That will be a minute difference, but it will make a difference in really tight woods scenarios. So for me, I want a bike that's really going to do well in single track. So that's little goat trails. I don't always end up doing those kind of rides, but that's where I find I need the most help because I'm not that skilled. So the L makes sense for me because it's lighter, it's more nimble, and it's just got less on it to break when I eventually drop it off road. So those are the advantages of the L. The Rally obviously is going to be more comfortable. It weighs more, which is going to make it more stable on the open road. So if you do a lot of highway riding or a lot of high-speed road riding, it's going to feel more stable when the wind picks up, and it's just going to have more road presence. If you're a little gun shy about riding in traffic and you want people to notice you, perhaps the Rally's going to be better. It's also going to have the better headlight as well. If you do a lot of nighttime riding, the Rally is no doubt going to be able to illuminate the road in front of you. So you're really splitting hairs. Either bike could be great. But if I really had to choose, the L for the harder off-road, the Rally if you find yourself on the road more often than not. So that wraps up the viewer questions for this month. That was a pretty good lot. Sorry if I didn't get to yours, but I do get an awful lot of questions these days, which is really a great thing. I'm not complaining. It really does show the success of this channel and the great community we have. So I wanted to thank everyone out there that does throw in the questions and make these videos really great. That's it for this month. Thanks for sticking with me to the end. Don't forget to stay shiny side up, and I'll catch you in the next video, guys. See you later.